Okay, so what's the Chamber of Mines? Emma, can you tell me what the Chamber of Mines is?
It's like the organization that wants to make like rules that are like gonna harm and like organize between all the different mine companies and prevent like unions from forming, that kind of thing.
Okay,
And they're gonna like ally with the people that are like the white unions so that they don't like work with black unions.
right. Okay, so that your definition's missing a noun. Um, Victoria, can you help me with this? Can you help make, let's polish up Emma's definition a little bit. What is the Chamber of Mines?
Like a collection of mine companies.
Yeah, there we go. It's a collection of mining companies. Okay, so it's not part of the government, but it's telling the government what to do. Essentially, is what's going on, right? So it's all the biggest, richest mines, and they're all basically telling the government what. All right. So Emma did get to the one most important thing is what is the role that the Chamber of Mines plays in pitting whites against blacks? What role does it play in expanding apartheid? Dylan, do you have an answer for that?
Would it be like the fight for white South Africa?
Right. That's in the picture there. Workers of the world unite for fight for a white South Africa. How is it expanding apartheid for them to do that?
Sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Dylan.
Don't like the whites like negotiate and like start labor strikes to get paid more and like they become more violent against blacks?
They do, but what's the role that the Chamber of Mines took in doing that? Laura, do you know? Or yeah, Laura, and then anyone. It's open to anyone else.
Well, didn't they like start getting paid more, and then the blacks like weren't getting paid as much? So they had to like they started getting treated differently. Like the whites needed like that social like superiority over the blacks.
Right. That's not answering the question yet. What does the Chamber of Mines do? Yeah, Ashley?
The Chamber of Mines specifically makes an agreement with the white people that the white people will get paid more and like the days off that they want, as long as they never interact with the black unions. And this causes the black unions and the white unions to like never work together because they got betrayed. And there's like a race and class divide.
Absolutely correct. Yes. Yeah, absolutely correct. So we want to, this is going to give us a marriage between political apartheid and economic apartheid, right? Because we have the politicians already who are motivated by racism, and now we have the businesses who are motivated, have a business interest in keeping apartheid going, right? And so the business interests are willing to give the white people money in exchange for the white people turning on the black people, right? This is going to entrench apartheid within normal working class people, right? It's no longer just like an idea of like politicians. Now it's become like a bread and butter issue of like regular workers, right? When we say a bread and butter issue, we mean that this is like a like middle class, lower class like issue that they are going to focus on. All right, well, let's go to the union strike that we had referenced earlier. Okay, so the African Mine Workers Union starts in 1941, and it's founded by this man here, J.B. Marks. He's the founder of it, and it's the first Black union in South Africa. Okay, that's a very important thing that we need to get. It's the first Black union in South Africa, and the white unions and the Chamber of Mines, they go through a lot of effort trying to shut this down. Okay, so the African Mine Workers Union has like newspapers that are supporting them, and has like newspapers that are supporting them, and those newspapers are being shut down. Right, like they get the offices get raided, the reporters get thrown in jail. They have like workers who, labor leaders who get arrested, get harassed, get sometimes beaten, sometimes just arrested on false charges, right? This happens quite a bit for years and years and years, for like a period of like maybe 3 or 4 years before the union's actually founded. Once the union's actually founded, then all the labor union leaders are constantly being arrested and harassed. By the time we get to 1946, the labor union is going to actually start a strike. This is going to be the first major strike in South Africa, the first major step against apartheid in South Africa. And this is apartheid right at the very beginning, right? This is the right at the very beginning of like official apartheid starting. And this union is going to go on strike. We have 60,000 workers go on strike. And of course, the Chamber of Mines is going to react exactly the way we all expect them to react, of course, right? They're going to react violently, right? They're going to attack the mine, the strike, attack the strike. They're going to injure hundreds of people. They're going to kill, I think it's 9. Yeah, they're going to kill 9. They're going to injure 1,500 people. They're going to injure so many people. And it's going to be a series of basically just violent like reprisal and uprisings that go on for days and days and days. The person leading the strike, leading against the strike is Jan Smuts. Jan Smuts, oops. Jan Smuts, he will become leader of South Africa. He's a war vet from World War I vet and politician. He's like one of the founders of the National Party. And he enacts War Measure 1425. That's not a date, it's the number. He enacts War Measure 1425. And War Measure 1425 basically allows him to arrest anyone perceived as being a military threat. This is kind of like the Alien and Sedition Act in the United States. Okay, do you guys remember the Alien and Sedition Act in the United States when John Adams uses it and when Woodrow Wilson uses it? Do you guys remember that at all from last year? Who can tell me what it was? You should have gotten it in your AP US in those two instances under Wilson and John Adams. Snea, do you remember?
Doesn't it like give them the right to who did like immigration and women's rights? That's what I can remember right now.
Yeah, Wilson uses it against the women's rights protesters. Wilson uses it against them. John Adams uses it against people who just are writing bad articles about him, right? So the only time this really ever comes up is like the abuses of this, right? Do any of you guys remember? So the Alien and Sedition Act, I'll just give it to you. The Alien and Sedition Act in the United States the Sedition Act allows them to define anybody who is opposing the US government can be arrested, essentially. Anyone opposing the US government can get arrested, can be arrested. The war measure basically does the same. The War Measure 1425 basically does the same, and it allows Smuts to start arresting people and throwing them in jail. One of the reasons why he's able to do that is because Marx is, ironically enough, a communist with a name like Marx, right? All right. He was kind of doomed to become a communist, I think, with a name like Marx. But J.D. Marx is a member of the Communist Party, the SACP, the South African Communist Party. And the South African Communist Party at this point in time has existed since like the early 1920s is when it first comes into existence, you know, after the Soviet Union is established. After the Soviet Union is established, then suddenly communist parties start showing up in basically every country of the world, essentially. For the most part, these communist parties kind of exist on the outskirts of the political world, right? They are not really considered like legitimate party, right? In the United States, we have the Communist Party. The Communist Party was like the 7th largest vote getter in the last election. You know, way to go, communists. In the United States, they always get like whatever, a couple thousand votes, you know, something like that. In some countries, they become more and more powerful. You'll see that When we get into India, they're more powerful in India. They are pretty powerful in India, but in South Africa, they're never like super powerful. They're never super powerful, but they are definitely definitely connected to the African people, right? The African workers. All right. So what is this strike? What's the aftermath of this strike? The aftermath of this strike is going to be the founding of these parties, right? The ANC is going to join with the SAIC. The SAIC is the South African Indian Congress. Okay, AB Zuma, or actually, I'm sorry, AB Uma. He's the leader of the ANC. Naidu and Rustomji are going to be members of the South African Indian Congress. Basner is a white ally. He's like a white liberal ally who is not part of these two groups, but he's allied with them. He's kind of representing the whites, sympathetic whites. Okay, so Naidu and Rustomji are representing the coloreds, mostly Indians. Zuma is representing the Africans. And these guys are going to join together in like a political alliance. They're going to formalize the political alliance between the SAIC and the ANC as a response to the violence brought about by the government. Ish, if you're with us, join us. Turn on your camera and become part of the group.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you don't have to yell at me with a robot voice. All right.
I was connected to the wrong mic.
Okay. All right. So let's see here. These parties are going to be unifying politically, but they're going to be viewed as, a lot of people are going to view them as being kind of ineffective, right? These are old parties. They're filled with a lot of people who've been around for quite a while. And so they've been around for quite a while. And so what we're going to also see in this aftermath is the rise of the ANC Youth League. This will be the last thing that we're going to do today, and then we'll stop it off. But the ANC Youth League is the African National Congress Youth League. Now, this is going to be a group of young people, right? Like teenagers and college age activists who are not happy with the ANC, right? They're not happy with the fact that the ANC is negotiating, is trying to go through all these like back channels and stuff. That this youth group wants to be more active, right? They want to actively go out. They want to protest. They want to boycott. They want to do like active nonviolent resistance, okay? They are looking at India. They're looking at Gandhi in India, and they're looking that the Indians have just overthrown, they've almost overthrown the British at this point, right? The Indians have almost gained their independence through massive nonviolent resistance, right? We'll get all those details in January, but just rest assured, India is going to get its independence a year later, right? A year later, and it's being led by Gandhi, of course, who lived in South Africa. The ANC is going to look at this, and they're going to see massive protests and resistance in the United States, like during the Great Depression. They're going to see it all through the progressive era of Europe and the United States. They're going to see it as anti-colonial in India. And they're looking at this and they're saying that the key here is not political negotiation. It's not negotiation. The key here is disruption, right? So they're founded by, these are our founders here: Anton Lembede, AP Mda, Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, right? Nelson Mandela is probably, I'd be willing to bet, the only name you've heard on this list, right? But Lembede is the guy in the picture right here. Lembede is credited with being super smart, super charismatic leader. He is like the he's like the George Washington of this organization, right? really charismatic. Everyone wants to follow him. Everyone wants to go along with him. Unfortunately, he dies at like age 28. He dies super early from a medical problem. He has a like a, I forget what it is. It's some kind of digestive disease that kills him. He's not assassinated. He's not assassinated. He's not murdered. He just dies of a medical issue at like age like 28 or 29, really, really young. And so we're left with Sisulu, Tambo, Mandela leading the group afterward. Okay, the ANCYL, they come up with their program of action. Their program of action is it will become known as the Defiance Campaign. Okay, the Defiance Campaign is going to be active protests and active boycotts. Active protests and active boycotts across the whole country. Okay, this is something that the ANC and the SAIC didn't really do very much. They didn't do like marches in the streets. They didn't do that kind of stuff very much. They mostly said that's a labor union kind of thing to do. And that we were like, they saw this distinction between labor unions leading strikes and political groups leading like political change, right? So the older people have this idea that you have to like negotiate with politicians, right? The labor unions do the strikes, and so they didn't view that as the same. The ANCYL views it as a marriage between the two. That if the political group is going to be effective, they have to be able to lead protests. Okay, their program of action will later become called the Defiance Campaign. The Defiance Campaign is going to be the primary vehicle of resistance to apartheid.
Was the so the ANC was created, or the ANC Youth League was created before the first strike?
Yeah, it was. It was. So the social pressures that create the ANCYL and the labor union are the same social pressures there, right? But the ANCYL in those first couple of years are really, really new. Like they're mostly trying to work within the structure of the ANC and like convince, that's the young people trying to convince the old people to protest. And the old people are like, no, we can't protest. We have too much to worry about, right? And the ANCYL is like, no, we have to. And then the old people basically say, no, let the labor union do that, right? The success of the labor union strike is going to propel the ANCYL into the leadership of the ANC. That's the spoiler alert for you, is by the end of the 1940s, the ANCYL is the leadership of the ANC. Okay, it's going to get folded in and the old leadership of the ANC will be gone, right? So this is a changing of the guard, and it's a changing of the political philosophies of the group and the political strategies and of the group. Cool. All right, we'll get into more detail on what the Defiance Campaign is. Broadly speaking, you need to know that it's a campaign of nonviolent protests and bus boycotts. But we'll get into some of the details of it as we get forward. And we'll also get into like some of the who's who of these leadership, right? In the very first days, Anton Lembede is the most important one, but he dies super, super early. He dies only like 3 or 4 years into the movement. He dies really, really early, but he's the guy who like organizes it all and like excites everybody and gets them all going. Cool. All right. You guys have a new discussion this week that I just posted. We're doing it's a letter to a Hindu. It's by Leo Tolstoy, the Russian author. He wrote War and Peace and Anna Karenina, probably the greatest Russian author of all time. He wrote a letter to a young lawyer named Gandhi, who was active in a campaign in South Africa at the time in 1909. So we're going back in time slightly here. But now that the nonviolent defiance campaign has started up, we're going to look at the philosophical origins. Okay. Tolstoy was a very famous pacifist, a Russian author, very, very famous pacifist. And he is talking to this young firebrand lawyer who is also trying to lead a nonviolent movement in South Africa. right? So this is kind of a philosophic, like deep thinking type letter that Tolstoy writes to Gandhi. It's like 9 or 10 pages, something like that. All right. That letter is oftentimes cited as like the origins of nonviolent resistance, is oftentimes cited as that, right? I think white people tend to cite it as the origins of nonviolent resistance, right? I might point out that Gandhi had already been involved in it for like years before the letter came around, right? But white people insist that they invented it, right? They Columbused it, right? That they invented nonviolence. I would argue that perhaps that has an earlier origin. But regardless of whether it technically is the beginning or technically is the first, doesn't matter because it's important. It's a really important letter. And it's going to come back in Indian history as well. Cool. So that's your discussion for the week. You'll have that discussion. And you will have, and then your parallels paper is due at the end of the week, right? So work on that stuff and you'll be good to go. Do you guys have any questions or anything?